All right, everybody, welcome on into the Auburn Daily Show, the Tuesday edition of the Auburn Daily Show. Lance Dawe and Matthew Jacobs hanging out here with you on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon here in Auburn, Alabama. Matthew, really appreciate you hopping on the show with me today. Going to dive into some quarterback stuff, talking about what Auburn could do in the portal, just kind of looking at what we've got currently on roster. But before we dive into that, Matthew, I just want to kind of start things off here talking about A-Day a little bit more. As some of you may have watched yesterday, Dylan Lark and I kind of dove into some of our takeaways from the game, kind of gave our thoughts on what happened in the rain there on Saturday. But Matthew, haven't gotten your thoughts on what happened in the spring scrimmage. Tell me, what did you think about Hugh Freeze's first spring game on the Plains?
Hey, Lance. The first day, I'm going to go ahead and say that any coach at any level will be appreciative of the fact that with those conditions, that there were no turnovers. That wasn't mentioned by anybody yet. But when you run for 280 yards and I don't know how many carries and get smacked because there were some licks laid and nobody put the ball on the ground despite the quarterback's best efforts to throw some interceptions. There were no interceptions. So I was going to mention that was a great start. I imagine Hugh Freeze is thrilled with that. Uh, just off the top of my head, two linebackers look great for me, Austin Keys and Woodyard, excuse me. I believe they will be the starters coming out of the fall unless something happens in the portal. They look great. Defensive line missed a lot of tackles. Did not look great. The offensive line pushed them around, got to the second level. I mean, there were some plays that were just amazing how the offensive lineman, especially the left tackle, would just eat up to his block and then get to the second level and tie up the linebacker like crazy. Haley looks like a guy that could go to the combine immediately and put up numbers and whoop everybody at the NFL combine. That's great. Um, Defensive line's bad. Defensive line looked bad. Poor tackling. I want to throw out there that nobody say anything about the kicker. McPherson looked great in those
Yeah.
conditions. So special teams, no turnovers. Hey, looking pretty good for Auburn right now.
Yeah, absolutely. McPherson, I believe the first kick he had was like from 50, 49 that he missed, but then he made up for it. Evan McGuire, the backup kicker, hit a couple of kicks as well. I mean, special teams overall looks really, really promising. And something that the broadcast mentioned that I don't really think anybody's gotten into, it's like, look, Brian Batty, while he was solid on the ground for Auburn, he's going to be featured a lot more in this offense, or excuse me, for this team, rather, I should say, because of what he can do in the kick return game. So overall, I think those are really good points. Just keeping it clean. Auburn's linebacking core, you've got two starters there that I think you could be looking forward to next season. And then overall, the quarterbacks, not the most impressive thing, but hey, at least they didn't turn the ball over. I want to kind of dive into that now, Matthew, with you, just talking about where Auburn currently feels like they are with these quarterbacks. Hugh Freeze has been pretty vocal this spring, talking about what he expects out of these guys, what he expects out of this room moving forward. And he's continued to point out that Auburn is in a position where they could feel comfortable taking another quarterback if they choose to do so in the spring. In the spring window that's about to open up here in just 4 days. So what are your thoughts on, before we dive into the transfer portal stuff, what are your thoughts on what Auburn currently has on roster with Ashford, Finley, and Holden G?
Nobody has the room. Nobody has the control of the room. Nobody has the respect of the room. So I don't think they have a quarterback, to be honest with you. You're talking about a group of guys. Once again, conditions are no excuse there because you're going to have to play ball in this kind of weather come fall. And you have 60 yards passing, and 24 of those yards are pretty much non-legitimate because Holden Geriner was sacked on that throw that he did make to Landon King. I don't know if anybody noticed that, but
Yep.
he was two-hand touched. He should have been down. That play should not have continued. So really, 39 yards of one beautiful pass from Ashford to I'm drawing a blank here,
Tavares
but
Dawson, right?
thank you to Dawson. It's a beautiful pass because Kay and Lee slipped. Let's just be honest there, but it's still immaculate pass. TJ Finley, he's gone. I think he played the last game he's going to play in an Auburn uniform at the A-Day. He looked, I mean, I've heard other people prognosticate that he was the second best quarterback that day. There was in no realm of measurable possibility where he was number two. He was awful. The lame duck up to the triple coverage was pretty bad. He got bailed out with a DPI there. But there was another throw that was where he completely came off the rails. Is at the end of the game there where he had a check down man who could have been running for a big play. And I can't remember who was wide open on the right side. 80, 82. wide receiver, new guy, fresh
Jake
Cruz thing.
Cruz.
Yeah, he was at the top left, and that was on the play where he scrambled, but it looked like a quarterback run. He missed so many things, Finley did, that I don't see him making the room, to be honest with you. I don't know where he goes. I spoke yesterday about this. I have no idea where he drops to and what school would want him. And I hate to say it, he's a good kid, but he's not there. Holden Geriner, on the other hand, I thought looked pretty good as far as what he is. He looked exactly like what he is. He's a redshirt freshman. He threw more than anybody else. He did throw one bullet pass that he threw. He overthrew a couple guys, but he threw one bullet pass. I won't throw a name out there. Sean Jackson. I'm hearing some guys say that he doesn't have a place in this offense. I think he's going to be the third down back next year. Carnell Williams, you mentioned this yesterday, said in the presser that Sean Jackson had the best pass protection.
Yep.
And he caught a pass from Holden Geriner that was burnt to him out of the backfield. It was at his face mask. I don't know if you noticed that or not. He got his hands up quick and caught that. 80% of the time that ball's dropped. So I think he has a real shot at being the third down, running back. But I think Batty's going to be he was right in for the special teams like you mentioned. But we're getting off track a little bit here. Ashford looked like a second string SEC quarterback on A-Day for me. 39 yards passing, 38 yards rushing. He isn't there yet. He's just not there yet. So obviously, I think we're going to have to go to the portal. We could discuss it ad nauseum if you wanted to on every play that was made, because there wasn't that many of them. I mean, 90 total yards of offense or 60 passing yards. 1 for 3 for Ashford, 1 for 4 for Finley. And these aren't great numbers. I mean, Holden Geriner, what did he go for?
3 of 5, I believe.
3 of 5. Overthrew. I mean, got lucky on one. I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt on one. He threw the one to the sidelines that he threw like 14 foot high. I'm hoping he saw that would have been picked off at the last minute and kind of sorted to keep it from being picked off. But none of these quarterbacks are ready for SEC play. I don't see them getting ready over the summer or for the fall. And I think you agree with me on that. The way you're shaking your head.
Yeah, call it like you see it, man. You looked at what happened on A-Day. I understand that the environment is probably not the most beneficial for quarterbacking. Also, I don't know if necessarily Auburn was in. Freeze mentioned this earlier in the week that they were trying to do some things, but he did say, we're going to throw the ball around a little bit. We're going to try and execute. And in the plays that Auburn offered these quarterbacks, they whiffed consistently. You're talking about that check down to Nick Mardner that Finley threw, that he overthrew a 6'6" receiver.
How does that happen?
I don't understand how things like that happen for a Division I, much less SEC quarterback that was tabbed the starter for a team last season. So you got to be able to clean those things up, and maybe that cleaning things up means getting someone else in to kind of make that happen there. I agree with you. I don't necessarily feel confident about any of these guys on roster. The potential with Ashford is intriguing because of what it means in terms of the scheme that Philip Montgomery and Hugh Freeze are going to be running this year, but he's got to become a way more consistent passer in order for Auburn to have more success, I would say, than they did last year throwing the football. He's got to be able to get that down. But right now, you look at these three guys, Holden Geriner or Geriner. I believe they settled it on the broadcast. It's Geriner, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get that out of my system because I've been calling him something different for 2 years now. But yeah, I like Holden. I like Robby. Finley, I agree with you. I don't know where he would go, but it just feels like he's out of place with this year's team. And it's nothing against him as a person. It's just sometimes things don't work out on the football field. And if he wants playing time, if he wants another opportunity, I'm sure that there are some other schools out there that would be willing to at least give him that shot, if not give him the ability to kind of take the reins in an offense here in the future. So right now, Auburn's quarterback room, not the most promising. If we had to do, and I'm sure that preseason magazines here in about a month and a half or so are going to be ranking quarterbacks in the SEC, quarterback rooms, I should say. Auburn's is probably towards the bottom. I mean, if we're just going to be completely honest with you, and Hugh Freeze is known for really getting a good bit out of his quarterbacks, but I don't really think that you can sit here and project out something even average to above average out of Auburn's quarterback room in terms of throwing the football. So you turn to the portal, like Hugh Freeze has said several times. He would take a quarterback out of the portal if they can get it, but he would have to meet certain requirements. We're about to see that happen. April 15th is when the portal opens. Auburn's going to be looking at, I can only imagine, a variety of quarterbacks that are going to be entering again come Friday. That's kind of what I want to take and make the bulk of the show here today, Matthew, is taking a look at some of these quarterbacks Auburn may have their eye on. You have 5. I have an extra one and another piece that we wrote over at auburndaily.com that I want to point out. Before we dive into that, though, Matthew, just want to remind you guys, want to tell you guys that this video is sponsored by NordVPN. Staying safe online is an ever-growing difficulty. It's really easy to get exploited by hackers nowadays, and just at browsing the internet, going to any random site as you may. But NordVPN can protect you. It allows you to change your IP address and make you harder to track, securing your privacy. NordVPN is giving Auburn Daily listeners and readers a special deal, so check out the link in the episode description today to get that special deal. Thank you so much to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. All right, Matthew, I want to dive into first the 5 quarterbacks that you have written about over at auburndaily.com, talking about some different guys that you may think Auburn could be looking at because they are the only quarterbacks that would be worth anything in the transfer portal right now. But after that, though, I want to get into your list of players that you think may enter the portal / are already in it that you would be excited about seeing Hugh Freeze and this coaching staff pursue. You've got Auburn's 5 current portal options at quarterback over up at auburndaily.com, again, written by your boy, Matthew Jacobs. He mentions in the article, pretty straightforward, Matthew. I'm going to let you take the reins here. It's slim pickings for the Tigers right now before things open up on April 15th. So is there any sort of legitimacy to any quarterback in here that we could be excited about or be paying attention to as fans before that portal opens up on Friday?
In a word, no. Maybe at the bottom, because Zeke got obviously from the Air Force. He got denied, so he can't go anywhere. He's not going to be a graduate. Chance Nolan from Oregon State is a name that's on that list of 5 that is. He's been sitting there since December 1st. Nobody's wanted to take a chance on him. He's got great arm, great everything really. He's a little inconsistent with his his completion percentage, but there's a lot of teams scared of him because he took a brutal concussion 5 games in last year. It was one of the worst I've seen. So I think there's a little fear there, but he could bring everything Auburn wanted to immediately. He's got the experience, he's got the passing yards. I mean, 3,000 yards in a season in 4 games. That's not bad. That's nothing to take a stick at. So, and his touchdown to interception ratio was pretty decent. But he's really the only one in the portal right now that would even remotely be considered at Auburn, and I don't see that happening either. So
you look at the 5 guys in the quarterback portal as a whole that Matthew wrote about. Hazik Daniels, I believe is how you pronounce his name, out of Air Force. You've got Kinkhead Dent, which is just a fascinating name, out of Ole Miss.
Right?
Say it again.
You're exactly right. That's interesting. Kinkhead, and that's his real name. I looked it up.
And that's how you pronounce it, correct? I'm not crazy there?
You are dead on.
All right. Chase Wolf, transfer from Wisconsin. And then again, like you mentioned, Chance Nolan, not Noland, as another prospect, probably the most likely here out of the quarterbacks that Auburn could be looking at. But the portal opening up in just a few days. And Matthew, you've got 5 guys, no burgers and fries, that Auburn could be taking a look at if they choose to enter the portal. Why don't we go ahead and start here at the top with a guy that you told to me before we started recording you're really intrigued with, and that's Casey Thompson, the quarterback from Nebraska, previously at Texas.
He would be a stud get. He's working on his shoulder right now. He had to sell out spring training, had a little procedure done on his shoulder. New coaching staff there. Matt Rule came in. He's not getting a lot of love. The coaching staff really loves who they have there. I'm not going to throw that name out there. But he's a 6-year senior graduate, came from Texas, went to Nebraska. He's a moonshot. He's probably the best person that I can think of off the top of my head that would make Auburn a legitimate 10-win, maybe even a 10-win bowl team, something along those lines. His father and I'm going to stress his father, have really committed through the media that they want to stay at Nebraska. He's kind of indicated otherwise. But if things were to go south there, because he's not getting what he wants out of the spring ball situation. He'd be a great grad transfer to Auburn. Gives the guys at Auburn a chance to catch up maybe a little bit and get some of these recruits in and see how they do. You could plug and play him almost immediately. I would go from there. Casey is a great thought. I'm going to go ahead and throw a few more names out there, and that's Spencer Sanders at Ole Miss, grad transfer. He's in a trifecta quarterback battle right now at Ole Miss that he's probably not going to get the best end of. And I know before you scream at me, well, we would want a guy that could make an SEC roster. Well, none of our guys can make an SEC roster. This guy's got the quality, and he can plug and play into Freeze's offense, no problem, and win football games. That's what we're trying to do here, win football games. And then the one that's really striking me today, just more and more, because the more they recruit, is Evan Prater. See if I get that name right. Evan Prater out of Cincinnati. Once again, he backed up last year and played wonderful. The QB1 went down. I can't remember his name. And if he isn't the quarterback one coming out of spring after the way he played last year, he's a definite option. And then I'm going to throw in from Duke. I think Riley from Duke. He's from Fairhope, Alabama. He really kind of wanted to go to Auburn in the first place, ended up at Duke. He's went up there and thrown for 3,000 yards. Great touchdown to interception ratio. He's a guy that I'm looking at too. And of course, again, Chance Nolan, I think, is somebody who deserves some consideration if you're not too scared about the concussion thing.
All five, I think, really solid options for Auburn. If you're talking about, which is what you just said, getting this program elevated back to where they want to be in terms of baseline wins. And that's looking at 7 or 8 minimum every single year. I think that any of these guys for this season alone, like you said, could go out there and help Auburn win football games. You made some very, very good point about the current state of this roster relative to some of these quarterbacks in the portal. It's really, really hard to turn your nose up at an average to above average Power 5 starter. Or you can also classify Cincinnati as that as at this point, I guess, starting next year, because of the situation that Auburn has on roster right now with the 3 quarterbacks that they have. Not particularly confident in any of their abilities to kind of elevate this team past where they could be with another quarterback like Thompson, Prater, Lenoard, one of these guys here. Looking statistically at some of these different QBs, I mean, they're not bad selections. During his 4 seasons that Thompson played for Texas and Nebraska, 47 touchdowns, 19 interceptions. He did have a 17-10 TD-INT ratio with his only year with the Cornhuskers so far. Maybe we see that go up if he's able to win that job over Jeff Sims here this fall. You've also got, just want to point out here, former 4-star quarterback, so it's not like some rando mid recruit that we're looking at here. He was a solid quarterback coming out of high school as well. Evan Prater is somebody that I would be intrigued with at 6'4". Looks like a dual threat type of guy. Like you mentioned, came in for a little bit of playing time after the starter got hurt for the Bearcats last year. Riley Lenoard is somebody that I was very intrigued with about a month or so ago. Not quite sure if he's the lead candidate for the Tigers right now in terms of what they could be looking at, anticipating coming out of the portal. But I think he's going to be somebody that they have their eyes on. One of the reasons being, like you mentioned, from Fairhope, Alabama, 2,900 passing yards last year for Lenoard as a freshman, if I'm not mistaken, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Also had almost 700 rushing yards and 13 touchdowns as well. I mean, this kid put in some work, and he's got some height to him as well. 6'4", 212 pounds. When you look at this kid's stat line, it looks like, I would assume without the personality, like a Chad Kelly, right?
Yeah.
Somebody that can go out there and get you some of those rushing yards. I believe Kelly twice in his Ole Miss career was second on the team in rushing yards. One of those seasons, I know he had at least 500. So he was a dual threat type of guy, slung the ball around, didn't turn the ball over a ton compared to a guy like Bo Wallace. Lenoard would be, I think, frame-wise, stat-wise, would be a Hugh Freeze type of quarterback. And then there's one other guy that I wanted to point out here. You mentioned Chance Nolan as well, and Spencer Sanders, who, if he were able to bounce out from Ole Miss and take maybe a trip down to the Plains, I think that he would be a great system fit. But Hayden Wolf is a name that a lot of you probably have not heard of. Pretty valid. Not saying that there's any smoke here, but he just today, just a little bit before this recording, entered the transfer portal. He is from Old Dominion. He's a sophomore, 6'5", 235 pounds. He threw 18 touchdowns to 6 interceptions last year for the Monarchs. I think that he could be somebody that some Power 5 program is looking at. Is it Hugh
Definitely.
Freeze in Auburn? Maybe, but it's another name in the portal now that I think could be somebody to at least watch. He wasn't the most accurate, and again, he was playing at a place like Old Dominion. Is that better than Robby Ashford and TJ Finley? Would that be a better backup quarterback than whatever Auburn gets in the portal or ends up starting for them? I think that would be an argument to be made. So that's a name I just wanted to toss out there
It's a
as we
good,
continue.
it's a great name. I think all of these guys, everybody we mentioned, betters Auburn's quarterback room.
Chances. Yeah.
But we also we're remiss to mention that there's still Hank Brown coming in the fall. We haven't mentioned that. And what does that mean for Geriner? I'm trying to say his name correctly too. Does he see the writing on the wall there too, or does he stay and participate with Hank Brown coming in? And can Hank Brown be a starting freshman? It's not unheard of to have a freshman in the SEC start.
Yep.
He's a baby goat? Can he do it? He looked really good playing for a really good quarterback who turned into a coach, Dilfer.
Yeah.
So there's always that possibility too.
So kind of just to wrap up here, thoughts on the transfer portal and thoughts on Auburn's current roster situation. I mean, you've been pretty point blank with who you think's going to stay and who's going to go or potentially leave here, Matthew. Let's throw this hypothetical out there because it feels like the most likely situation. Portal opens up on Friday. Auburn, within a few days or a week, identifies their guy and gets him out of the portal. He is somebody that could be a starter and is leaning towards, in the fan base's eye and just the way that the program talks about him, he's looking like he's probably going to be a starter just based on the way that Auburn talks about him. And he's going to not necessarily going to be a high profile guy, but somebody that they could look at. He's number one, right? You've got Ashford, Finley, Geriner, Brown. Outside of the kid that transfers in, what do you see those other 4 quarterbacks doing in that scenario in response to Auburn picking up that kid?
Also, you have to add in that you have the the Walker coming in next year because I'd be running up right up against Brown and all these guys too.
Yep.
So it creates that's the reason I think you want to go with an older. You want to go with an older guy if you can.
Yep.
That's the reason I think the guy from Nebraska, Casey Thompson, is such a good choice because he's going to be gone after the year no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
It lets you keep these guys because that's what you're looking at. You're not really worried about TJ Finley at this point. Asher's not going anywhere for a little while unless he wants to sit out for a year. So he's going to be the backup quarterback. He's got a skill level that's back up in the SEC, that's for sure. Other than that, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not sure how it works. You throw your name in the portal as long as you get in there before the 30th.
Yep.
It can sit there all summer. You can be picked up at any time, I think. I'm not sure, but who knows? So some of these guys, I got to see Geriner throwing his name out there if he really sees the writing on the wall. It's like, hey, I'm a third string quarterback going into at the best. I'm a third string quarterback going into the fall. I hope not. I hope we keep him. He looks good. He made 3 bad zone reads the other day, but he can play. He's a young kid that can pick it up. He can be trained. But yeah, as right now, honestly, just like you stated it, I believe you're going to get your starter out of the portal. I believe Ashford's going to be pushed, but he's not going to currently have the ability to lead this football team to more than 6 or 7 wins. And then I don't know. Hank Brown's going to be there. That's probably going to push Geriner to 4th because Brown has better skill set than he has for this offense. So your guess is as good as mine on that one. I don't know what they do. I don't see him. Then you got Walker coming in. I don't know. I don't even know how you recruit for it unless you bring in a guy if you bring in a guy who's a sophomore for a starter this year, unless he's going to the NFL, what do you do?
Yep. What decision do you make there if you bring in a younger guy? That's a good point. Talking about, for Auburn's roster makeup for the unit that next season with Walker White coming in, what decision can you make now that best puts you in a position where players don't transfer out next year? Exactly. You're trying to keep as many of these guys on roster, and if you can, trying to build up some more quality depth, I would say, than what Auburn's had over a couple of years now. So getting a more experienced quarterback makes the most sense. If Auburn doesn't get an experienced quarterback, you're looking at Geriner, did it again. You're looking at Geriner, you're looking at Finley, and you're looking at, potentially losing either Hank Brown or Walker White. if they do decide, hey, I was coming in to expect in the situation next season to be somebody that was at least competing for this job. Maybe Walker White's in a situation where he understands, look, year one, probably going to be backing somebody up. Maybe he's content with that. But here's the thing, like you said, if you get a sophomore quarterback out of the portal, I mean, if he's not somebody that's ready to pop for the draft, that's 2 more years. If a guy like Walker White comes in, he's going to be like, okay, I have to wait until my junior year potentially to go out and win this job. And at that point, if Hank Brown's still sticking around, I mean, there's another guy on your roster, if Brown red shirts, that you're looking at a junior as well, competing for the starting job. Not the worst situation for Auburn, but maybe if these kids are looking for a legitimate shot at playing at the next level, I mean, that's where they're going to turn is the portal if they want to go get that more extra playing time. So really interesting how this could all shake out depending on who Auburn gets here within the next couple of weeks. I think that you would agree with me. I would expect Auburn to get somebody.
Maybe two.
That's what I was about to say. Is do you think maybe we could potentially see Auburn pick up 2 guys? I mean, the more the merrier at that point, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting. Not the problem with that is that we have a certain amount of scholarship spots, roster spots, and we're going to have to send out 12 or 14 guys, which for you and I, that's great. We have something to write about and talk about, but we're going to send 12 to 14 guys out to bring 6 or 8 guys in.
Yep.
And those numbers are going to fluctuate. So I don't know that you can go get 2, but I think it's honest that you can get a guy and Riley Lenoard. I think you can put 2 people in front of Ashford going into fall. We could do that. And I think if Freeze has the opportunity, and Montgomery too, they're going to pull the trigger on that. And because they're not going to let him right now, let's be honest with you, Vanderbilt has a better quarterback situation than we do.
Yep.
Think about that for a minute.
I saw you write about that the other day, and I was like, I wonder if somebody's going to take like a disagreement with that, because I'm right there with you. I'm like, I completely agree with what he had to say about that, because AJ Swan, it was solid for them. Didn't turn the ball over during some of the games that he had last year. Mike Wright transferred, and I can't remember where he transferred to. Was it Mississippi State? I think he transferred to Mississippi State.
It was, yeah, it wasn't Mississippi State. I don't know.
I think it was State.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right.
And then I think that if I'm not mistaken, they've got like a decent quarterback coming in. Vanderbilt does.
Yeah, they do. And Mississippi State has several good ones. Ole Miss has a plethora of them. Georgia has like 10. Alabama has 2 good ones. Plus, I hate the name. The team, we do not mention their name. They have several sitting there. Literally, Auburn might be in the worst situation. I don't know. No, Florida's trying to compete. They're trying to get down to that level, bringing in who they brought in.
Florida's negatively competing. Yeah. They brought in Graham Mertz, and everybody just went, wow. Okay, so we're going to take them from about middle of the pack, and we're going to slide them down to about 12th here, just to see how they work out with that.
When you pick up a quarterback, and the opposing team that quarterback comes from are celebrating the fact and thanking the fans that you took the guy away from, that's probably not going to be a good SEC pick. Just saying.
Half the fan base thought that about Bo Nix, which I wonder how that worked out.
Wouldn't you love to have him right now?
Yeah, wouldn't you love to have Bo Nix come back to Auburn right now in a Philip Montgomery, Hugh Freeze offense? That would be fun. Anyway, less torture for the Auburn fans here. Kind of want to wrap things up, get your final thoughts. What do you think if Auburn does pick up a quarterback like Lenoard, like Sanders, somebody that could be of that starting caliber? I asked Dylan this question on yesterday's show. Coming out of spring games, I like to say that's a blank win team, just kind of joking, but also kind of being serious, just kind of giving my thoughts on that's the product that Auburn put out for the fans to see. That's a blank win team. With a transfer portal quarterback, what type of team is Auburn this year, just wins-wise?
With this defense, which we saw very vanilla defense on an 8A, with this offensive line, who I think they're going to add some depth with that too, is going to be wonderful. And with this running game, you had a starting quarterback who's not just throwing interceptions and making bad choices all the time. This is a 10-win team. This could quickly become a team that is – Auburn always does well from this role. You know this. You're an Auburn fan. You know the guys. So I could see 10 wins. You keep if Robby Ashford's a starter coming out of spring, I'm thinking 7 to 8 wins tops. If you add a guy in, unless there's a huge leap there, if you add a guy in like a Casey Thompson, if you add a Casey Thompson in, if you add a Lenoard in, that's kind of the limit. There's still going to be those 2 teams I don't think you beat, but you catch one early in the year. This could be a good football team real quick.
I think they've got the pieces. I think they've got the pieces to make some noise in the SEC. I mean, we saw LSU do it last year. Is the talent on roster comparable to what LSU had last year? I'd have to take a look. My gut tells me no.
No.
But then again, I do think that, like you said, Auburn plays best whenever they're the underdog, so to speak. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited to see what Auburn does in the portal. If you want to keep up with everything that the Tigers are keeping it up on with the portal, you can check us out over at auburndaily.com. All of our written work there will be on display on Friday and throughout the weekend as the Tigers start to identify some of the pieces they could get, not just quarterback as well there. So that's going to do it for today's episode of the Auburn Daily Show. You can follow the show on Twitter at the Auburn Daily. You can follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_. Matthew, you want to drop your Twitter handle here real quick?
_@ Matthew Jacobs _ if you want to send me the hate mail for the Vanderbilt comment, go right on ahead.
Absolutely. You can also check out again all of our written work over at auburndaily.com. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel already, go ahead and do so. If you're listening on podcast, go ahead and give us a follow there as well. We will see you all tomorrow for another episode of the Auburn Daily Show. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.